This is Dr. Karen Taraka in the Organic Chemistry Lab. And the next step of taking a TLC, after you spot the TLC plate, you want to develop it. We use something referred to as a developing jar. A developing jar is just a glass jar with a lid. We want to make sure that the vapor inside is fully equilibrated with the liquid phase. So we're just going to put a piece of filter paper in our developing jar. And we next want to add TLC developing solvent. And so this week in lab, our developing solvent will be 25 to 1 to 1, ethyl acetate to ethanol to acetic acid. And so what we want to do is put this in our jar. And again, we don't want to add it to a great depth. We want to make sure that our TLC plate spot that we've spotted isn't going to be below the liquid line. So we're shooting for a few millimeter depth of solvent in our jar, and you do want to make sure that the filter paper also gets wet. And again, we're looking for a few millimeters of solvent. You want to make sure you keep the jar capped at all times, just because different components will evaporate at different rates. And we want to make sure we keep the composition that we start with. So we've already spotted the plate. So to develop it, what we want to do is with a pair of tweezers, again, handling the TLC plate on the edges with gloves. You want to make sure you don't contaminate your TLC plate. What we want to do is put this into our developing jar, and we want it to be as level as possible. So we're going to put the lid on, and it's going to take a few minutes for this to develop. What happens during the course of this is that the liquid will start to rise up the plate, and as we get past our developing dot, it should carry that dot along the plate with it. So we're going to let this develop until we get to within about 1 centimeter of the top of the plate. So we've been allowing this TLC plate to develop. It's been 5 to 6 minutes. And the solvent has traveled up the plate. And what we want to do is take this out of the TLC jar and mark the solvent front. So mark the line, it's a little bit gray on the plate. The plate's going to be wet with solvent as a result. And what you want to do is make sure that that solvent line at the top is marked. So you should end up with 2 lines on here, one from where you started and one where you ended up. As you can see, you can't see a whole lot on the plate because the organic compound isn't colored. And so in order to visualize that, as we said before, we're going to use that fluorescent indicator in the plate. So I'm going to put this underneath the UV light, and let's do a close-up so we can see what that looks like under the UV light. Okay, turn off this one. And we can see that we've got a nice spot on the plate. So what you want to do is take your pencil, and while it's under the UV light, you want to make a nice pencil line around where the spot is, so that when you take it away from the UV light, you'll be able to see that pencil line. So if we take this out, so when I take this out of the UV, I now can see where that spot was. And what you want to do is sketch in your notebook, right, exactly what this looks like by the shape. And you'll need to take measurements for RF. And again, RF is going to be the measurement from the middle of your spot to the line where you started, divided by your solvent line to your start line, right? So that's going to be your RF value. So you want to make sure you have sketches in your notebook for these, and then when you're done, you've completed all the information that you need on these plates, these can go into the solid waste container. So that's developing a TLC plate.